Hey guys, it's Anfield here. Welcome to a new top 5 video, and today we're going to be doing top 5 tanks we all miss that have either been removed or nerfed in some way. So let's begin. So getting us started at number 5 is the KV-1S. The KV-1S isn't a tank I particularly played much myself, and it's a tank that has since been moved down to tier 5. The line's been split in different ways, but when it was a tier 6, it was absolutely brutal in the tier. I had the same gun as the IS, and that alpha gun was absolutely devastating to any tank in that tier. And many people enjoy playing the KV-1S, playing it a lot. It was often considered a huge steel clubbing tank, but it was generally enjoyable to play. Something about having that heavy tank that could just go around absolutely killing anything it sees. A lot of people enjoyed it, so I'm going to put it at number 5. Not a tank I personally played, but I know a lot of people missed this tank and played it a lot. Coming in at number 4, we have the T-57, the Tier 10 American heavy tank. The T-57 still exists to this day, obviously, and it's still pretty good. However, before, it was absolutely deadly. The T-57 was nerfed in 9.3. Its accuracy was nerfed on the move by 25%, and other accuracy and aim time nerfs really killed its gun's capability. It used to thrive on the fact that it has such great DPM and it could get those shots out. Unfortunately, that DPM is a little limited because of the fact of how nerfed the gun was. You're not always going to get all those shots out as accurately as you might want to. This was done to differentiate the tank from the 50B, which is frustrating because it wasn't really necessary. It was already very different, but unfortunately the 57 was nerfed quite badly. The other downside the 57 ended up having was when they nerfed heat. When they fixed heat, the 57 lost a lot of its sting per se, because it could no longer just fling heat and pen whatever it wanted. Back in those days, the 57's first release with powerful heat, it was absolutely unstoppable. Coming in at number 3, we have the M48 Patton. The M48 was first introduced when Wargaming introduced Tier 10 mediums for the first time, prior only having Tier 9 mediums. The new Tier 10 was much loved by most of the community. However, it wasn't long before Wargaming decided it was too strong, and they nerfed its DPM, its turret traverse, its aim time, and dispersion, and accuracy. And the M48 is what we have today, unfortunately. And while still not a terrible tank, it is nothing like it used to be when it first came out. In our number 2 slot, we have the Object 268. The Object 268 was basically what my favorite tank was. The same way I feel about the 50B now, I used to feel about the Object 268. It was everything I wanted from a tank destroyer. That big alpha gun, but while being mobile and effective on the front lines. I don't like camping, and the 268 was perfect. You could play it aggressively, and it would suit those needs just fine. The 268 was introduced in the same patch as the Tier 10 mediums. They added Tier 10 tank destroyers as well, and it was my instant favorite. I also liked the Foch, but the 268 was just an absolute joy to play. But eventually they nerfed all the tank destroyers that basically they had at the time, bringing the alpha down from 850 to 750. They buffed the reload time a little bit, but it's not as useful as the alpha. They nerfed the whole turn rate, the aim speed while turning. The maximum reverse speed was nerfed, and the penetration was greatly nerfed. And it just led to the 268 just being what it is today, a really, really poor tank destroyer. They Wargaming later introduced tanks such as the 183 and the Waffentrager after nerfing these tanks that required some skill, and it absolutely devastated me. But I still remember those days of the real glory 268. Before we get to our number 1 pick, let's talk about some honorable mentions, because there are quite a few tanks and I'm probably going to leave some out regardless. So if I do forget, please let me know. So as just previously mentioned, the Foch 155 was also nerfed alongside 268, and that used to be absolutely enjoyable to play. It was different from the Waffentrager, although it was auto-loading. It wasn't nearly as broken. It had a 5-second reload still, and the aim time wasn't nearly as good. And of course, it didn't have a turret, so it had to use its gun traverse. So if you got killed by the Foch, it's probably your fault. Whereas the Waffen could track you anytime. So but it was strong. It was good, but it wasn't broken good. So we also have the T50-2, everyone's favorite scout. It doesn't make it on the list, and maybe it should. The only reason is that I didn't really like the T50-2. And I didn't really play many scouts in those days, but I know people that did play scouts, and they absolutely adored the T50-2 because it was so quick, so nimble, and so small. It was really effective. We also have the VK3601 before the Konish nerf. The VK3601 was a tier 6 at the time. It was a medium tank. I think it led to the Tiger. I think I went up that line, but I never played the Konish. I was brand new to the game at the time. If you were willing to fire Konish with its gold round, it was absolutely incredibly OP and was actually one of the most favored padding tanks a couple years ago. So we also have the T30. That is the T30 at tier 10. Although you could also include the T30 at tier 9 TD before it was nerfed, but we'll just go with the heavy for now. The T30 used to be the original, alongside the IS-7, the original heavy tank in the game that was tier 10 for the Americans. It was what you know as the T30 now, but at tier 10, more hit points, more nimble, and it was an absolute joy to play. It was the only alpha tank before the E100 was introduced at tier 10 for the heavies, and it was actually really fun, and it was a real competitor to the IS-7. It had a good enough gun to pen the IS-7, and it could hold down, and it was actually really fun. So yeah. So without further ado, for our number 1 pick of top 5 tanks we all missed that have either been removed or nerfed, we have the tier 9 IS-4. The tier 9 IS-4 was the tank before the IS-7 when there was no tier 10 line for the IS-4. Eventually they did swap it. It's never really been the same. I've never felt it was the same, and many people would agree that the tier 9 IS-4 is something they miss a great deal. The IS-4 was so powerful in its day because you didn't have a great deal of people firing gold. There was no gold for credit, so you didn't say gold that much, which meant its armor was incredibly good for its tier. Also, the IS-4 packed the same gun as the IS-7, the S70, and that kind of alpha in that tier was absolutely lethal. So without the power creep and other things, the IS-4 was absolutely devastating to its opponents in its day, and people missed this tank more than probably any other tank. If you started playing after the switch to tier 10, you really did miss an absolute behemoth of a tank. Personally, I didn't get to play it nearly as much as I wanted to. I got it just before the switch came. If you owned the tier 9 IS-4, you got the tier 10 for free, and then got an IS-8 as well. But I certainly regret not getting it quicker so that I could enjoy it in its prime. So that does it for this top 5 list. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if you have a different kind of list of tanks that you miss. And also, if you have suggestions for new top 5 videos that you want me to do, of course, let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching, and as always, good luck on the battlefield.